great people of tomorrow. Every perfume starts with one ingredient. But it's the last one that makes it come to life. You have witnessed the birth of a new elixir and have been part of a great adventure. You came here to find eternal bliss. But Mother Nature has given us much more.
It's not as rocket surgery as some people might think it is. And so the two basic components of that technology to make it work are a computer software that essentially you can enter in a genetic code and it will create a CGI model of that genetic code for you, which some smart university scientists did a couple years ago. Crudely, it's not the resolution that we would require, but that software has been created. So I can tell you from a development standpoint, not having to start at square one and develop that software from the get-go, basically being able to adapt someone who's already made that software and just focus on getting better resolution, that's a much more doable task. That's something that, you know, we can sort of predict a time span. Once we can dedicate time engineers, you know, to that task, we expect within a certain time frame of years, not decades, that we'll have solutions for the resolution that we need for that component. The other component essentially is a holographic projecting lens. And we have those. We have pretty good holographic projectors. What we don't have is something that can project to the resolution of cellular level. Now, what I will say is, even I can say that, and I'm going to tell you right now that 90% of any of the company, 99% of any company or engineers that tried to undertake that task without knowing a couple other secrets that you need to know about the configuration of that holographic lens, believe me, they are not going to be able to replicate the technology from just those two things. But once you understand the special properties about that lens that need to be special, and you can get the resolution that you need, and you have the computer program that gets you the resolution you need, then you're basically able to project a very, very small, high resolution image and recode a very, very high density area in a very small space, and so you're able to make very, very small, high resolution adjustments about that size. So then you can start to rebuild, you know, a finger, start to build, you know, an arm slowly in a little spiral as, you know, comes around. So it's a very slow process at this point because you're working on very, very tiny parts of the body. But that's, oh, we did it, hey. From that point, you're just being the technology to get more precise, better, you know, bigger spread, more power, you know, a higher powered computer to give you, you know, more coding per image that you can make per second, per centimeter, and all these issues that you have to think about in the engineering. And then essentially you've got the ability to restore any damaged organ, fix the cellular structure, chemical structure of any body. So all forms of heavy metal poisoning, every kind of bacteria toxicity, blah, 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 could all be straightened out. Damaged organs of any kind can be completely restored. And the big one is, of course, the Rosetta Stone of medicine, regrowing limbs. You know, modern medicine is yet to be able to, you know, say, well, we can put a limb back on that's been blown off. I mean, we're great with prosthetics, and we're just going to get better and better with prosthetics if that's what we focus on. But I think we can just grow stuff back.
So how do we deposit these living inks? Because tissues are composed of many different building blocks, we need to handle many different materials at once. You may be thinking of a lab that is filled with biologists manually mixing and preparing different cells and biomaterials, and they would be doing this by hand. They would need access to different dispensers and the ability to switch between these dispensers throughout the process. This would be slow and manual. What if we could integrate and automate many of these lab functions and shrink them down to one simple chip? We call this chip Lab on a Printer. I brought one with me today, and I'm holding one in my hand right now. Our 3D bioprinter uses this Lab on a Printer to deposit living inks. Our Lab on a Printer allows us to take multiple living inks and deposit combinations of these on the fly through a single nozzle to rapidly develop living structures. Here's an example where our Lab on a Printer is depositing many different materials at once. The blue, red, yellow, and green materials, well, these could represent different cell types, different growth factors, different components that make up tissues inside of our body. Our Lab on a Printer then deposits these living inks layer by layer to construct a living structure. This structure could be an example of an airway or a blood vessel. Immediately after printing, these tissues are put into an incubator, which recreates the conditions inside of our body. If we were to zoom into one of these printed structures immediately after printing, we would see many green dots. Each one of these dots is a cell. Here's how they look after a couple days. Because we provided a suitable and comfortable environment for our cells to grow, they begin to talk and communicate and form interconnected networks. Our 3D printed structure has transformed into human tissue.
We're also working on more sophisticated printers because in reality, our biggest challenge are the solid organs. I don't know if you realize this, but 90% of the patients on the transplant list are actually waiting for a kidney. Patients are dying every day because we don't have enough of those organs to go around. So this is more challenging. Large organ, vascular, a lot of blood vessel supply, a lot of cells present. So the strategy here is this is actually a CT scan, an X-ray, and we go layer by layer using computerized morphometric imaging analysis and 3D reconstruction to get right down to those patients' own kidneys. We then are able to actually image those, do 360-degree rotation to actually analyze the kidney in its full volumetric characteristics, and we then are able to actually take this information and then scan this in a printing computerized form. So we go layer by layer through the organ, analyzing each layer as we go through the organ, and we then are able to send that information, as you see here, through the computer and actually design the organ for the patient. This actually shows the actual printer, and this actually shows that printing. In fact, we actually have the printer right here. So while we've been talking today, we've actually, you can actually see the printer back here in the backstage. That's actually the actual printer right now, and that's been printing this kidney structure that you see here. It takes about 7 hours to print the kidney, so this is about 3 hours into it now. And Dr. Kang's going to walk on stage right now, and we're actually going to show you one of these kidneys that we printed a little bit earlier today. These gloves are a little bit small on me, but here it is. You can actually see that kidney as it was printed earlier today. Has a little bit of consistency to it. This is Dr. Kang, who's been working with us in this project, and we want a part of our team. Thank you, Dr. Kang. Appreciate it. So this is actually a new generation. This is actually the printer that you see here on stage, and this is actually the new technologies we're working on now.
So naturally, it begs the question, if animals like zebrafish and salamanders are capable of such amazing regenerative acts, why can't humans? Why can't we heal our damaged hearts with the same mechanism of action that a zebrafish uses to heal its injured heart? Why not? Now, some of you may be sitting here thinking to yourself, well, this is great if you're a fish. What on earth is a fish going to tell me about my own abilities to heal my heart? Now, I'm going to concede, you and I, we look nothing like a fish. But did you know that a zebrafish and a human share about 70% of the same genes? Would it shock you to know that of all of the known human disease-causing genes, well, the zebrafish has 84% of them written in its own DNA? And lastly, and most importantly, did you know that the mechanism of action that the zebrafish employs to heal its amputated heart, that regeneration genetic program exists in mammals, in you, and me? So that is to say, if we induce the same heart injury in a newborn mouse, we see the same regenerative response that we do in an adult zebrafish. If, however, we allow these animals to get older and then we induce the injury, we see primarily scar tissue formation and no regeneration. This would be the exact same cellular response that you and I would exhibit if we had a heart attack. So what this means is that the instruction manual of how to heal a damaged and injured heart, it's not zebrafish specific, but it's actually written in our own genomic material. But it remains locked. For reasons that we've yet to understand, these regenerative genetic programs are not activated in adults. We need to unleash this potential.
We want to update you tonight on a story we've been following, quite frankly, for the last 5 years. 13-year-old Mackenzie Stuck of Mount Airy has passed away.
She was a brave young lady, and she captured our hearts as she tried to help other children with cancer. All the while, she was battling her own fight with brain cancer. 11 News reporter Jennifer Franciotti has more.
It is absolute proof that children have the hearts of lions. Wearing her favorite color and carrying pinwheels bearing the word that propelled Mackenzie Stuck through her 5-year battle with cancer, students at Mount Airy Middle School build a memorial to their friend and classmate. Mackenzie passed away Tuesday night with her family by her side, as they have always been. We first met Mackenzie at 9 years old. When sick herself, she raised money for teddy bears for other sick children. She was one of the first faces of the Cool Kids campaign, leading the way for cancer education. And every step of that way, her hometown community was there to cheer her on. This was when she came home from Johns Hopkins cancer-free.
It's great to see all my friends and all my family.
But late this spring, the family learned Mackenzie's cancer was back. She had a 4th brain tumor that would prove inoperable. For the girl who did so much for others, friends, family, and strangers came together to give Mackenzie a 13th birthday like no other. A fairy tale party for a young lady who accepted her fate with more grace than a princess or an angel.
I'm just trying to make the best of the time that I have.
Absolutely. Are you worried about dying?
Nope.
As her classmates say goodbye, it's clear Mackenzie and everything she fought for will live in the hearts of all who ever knew her or knew her story. A lifetime's worth of love for her mother to hold on to.
I fall asleep with her laying next to me. I breathe in her breath every night. I held her when she took her first breath. I'm going to hold her when she's taking her last breath.
lost a person, a family member, a loved one from cancer, any disease, any fatal illness or fatal injury that you were told couldn't be cured, didn't have to happen. It just didn't have to happen. If they hadn't been suppressing this technology for decades, that wouldn't have to happen. Truth is, if you know or lost somebody in the last 20 or 30 years, it didn't have to happen, because we've had technology that was way more advanced than anything that the civilian population has been using for ages and ages. So I would really hope that people would get really irritated and ticked off, because that's the kind of thing that also gets people motivated to participate.
Usually I would be standing on this stage over here conducting the college orchestra because I'm a music professor. But tonight I'm going to talk about my moonlight activities in the field of science and how they led to a cancer research lab and an important breakthrough. Over the past 8 years, I've had the great pleasure of working with some brilliant and dedicated scientists. They were very open-minded, and we had a common dream that in the future, children would not have to suffer from cancer or from the terrible side effects of toxic drugs or radiation, because we believed there just had to be a better way. There had to be a better way, and we think we may have found it. A scientist said, "You're killing more cancer cells than as if you had used radiation." That same scientist went on, "If you had spent millions of dollars developing a new drug that killed this many cancer cells, it would be a home run." This was an astonishing thing to hear, especially for a music professor who had just completed his first experiments in a cancer lab. But we didn't use any radiation. We didn't use any drugs. So what did we do?
You can now buy technology that was proven almost 100 years ago by Royal Rife and then covered up by a crooked medical system and the fake news on our televisions. Royal Rife was a brilliant scientist born in 1888. By 1920, he invented the only microscope able to see a virus. By 1933, he created a microscope able to magnify objects 60,000 times. Rife figured out how to destroy harmful viruses and microbes by vibrating them at their resonant frequencies. In 1934, USC appointed a committee to bring terminal cancer patients to Rife's San Diego clinic for treatment. After 90 days, the committee concluded 86.5% of the patients had been completely cured. The treatment was then adjusted, and the remaining 13.5% were cured within 4 weeks. The total recovery rate using Royal Rife's technology was 100%. He was honored in newspapers around the world at first.
1 out of every 7, or 600 million people worldwide, are diagnosed with cancer. 600 million families are dealing with the effects of cancer diagnosis and the potential to lose a loved one. Hello, I'm Melissa from Trusted Reviews, here today with expert Marco Pijata, microbiology researcher, to discuss Rife technology. Dr. Pijata, can you tell us about Rife technology and its cancer application?
Rife technology has been researched since the 1930s. It uses specific frequencies to destroy only the cancer cells, sparing healthy cells in the process.
That's the opposite of what chemotherapy does, correct?
Yes, chemotherapy does a lot of damage to your body. Rife technology is based on a way to destroy the bad without harming the good.
How does it work?
Rife technology uses high frequencies to kill viruses by shattering its outer shell. This is similar to how high frequencies shatter glass.
Has research shown its efficiency in specific areas?
Yes, Rife technology has been researched to treat lung, breast, and brain cancers, as well as diseases such as Lyme, Parkinson's, and AIDS. The technology is here today, and it's time people were made aware of this amazing technology.
Why have we not heard about this technology before?
The primary reason is there is no profit in this technology for the big pharmaceutical companies.
So, what advances today have brought this technology into the spotlight?
Advances in microtechnology have enabled us to build and package the equipment in a smaller configurations. This allows low cost and ease of use.
How do you operate the equipment?
Well, it's very simple to operate and has user controls.
Thank you, Marco, for being with us today.
Thank you for letting me share this revolutionary technology with you.
Who was Dr. Royal Raymond Rife? And why are so many people still interested in the technology he spent many years of his life developing? A brilliant and gifted man who developed the world's most powerful optical microscopes, which overcame the limitations of standard research microscopes, and who discovered a way to destroy deadly microorganisms using coordinative resonance. Though he died in 1971, interest in his discoveries did not. From 1915 to 1920, Rife worked in his private lab identifying and classifying disease-causing microorganisms. By the end of 1920, he was frustrated with the standard research microscopes because of the limitations in magnification. At this time, he was working on cancer, and the limitations of magnification were stopping him from finding the viral cause of the disease. Standard research microscopes at the time, like those manufactured today, could only magnify a microorganism up to 2,500 times diameter. Dr. Rife felt that with this limitation, he would never be able to find the true cause of many diseases. At about this time, Rife began his work using frequency instruments. He told a reporter in a May 6, 1938 Evening Tribune article that he also experimented with electrical stimuli on various microorganisms, and he noticed the individualistic differences in the chemical constituents of the diseased organisms, saw the indications of electrical characteristics, and observed the electrical polarities in the organisms. Random speculation on the observations suddenly stirred in his mind a startling, astonishing thought. What would happen if I subjected these organisms to different electrical frequencies, he wondered.
We would need some kind of device. So we searched the U.S. patent database, and we find this invention by a physician, Dr. James Baer of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's called a resonant frequency therapy device, and its purpose is to induce a resonant vibration in a living organism or cell.
Because of something called dominant harmonic frequency resonance, the cells of your body in which if you look in, you're taking this example that's a perfect example, right? It's your pure genetic code. So let's say you create a holographic projection of your liver. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be healthy. It's going to be as if it was never damaged because it's going to be the perfect blueprint from your DNA code. So the holographic image of that will be an undamaged, perfect, never used liver. Now let's say you're a drinker. Maybe your actual liver not doing so good, okay? Or maybe any other reasons. I mean, you could not be a drinker and not have liver failure, right? But your organs can go bad for any reason. But if you project that perfect image over a damaged organ, dominant harmonic frequency resonance means that that organ is going to want to conform to the perfect projection. So over a period of time, those cells are just going to want to look like those healthy cells, and they're just going to change. The cell, the very raw cellular structure matching up with this image, perfect image, just wants to conform to that shape because it's a slightly solid light form being a hologram. It's a sort of three-dimensional semi-solid light source that the cell can pattern against and wants to be like.
And there are two really important things about this device. The first is that it uses a very special kind of antenna. They take a hollow glass sphere, they evacuate the air, they put in some helium gas, And when we send in our electronic signals, the helium gas lights up like a fluorescent light. An electrified gas is called a plasma. So this is called a plasma antenna. And it has many special properties uniquely suited for this kind of work. The second important aspect about Dr. Baer's invention is that the output always pulses. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. This is very important because when you're doing research on the effects of electromagnetic waves on living organisms and cells, if the signal is constantly on, you are in danger of inducing heat in those cells. And heat causes indiscriminate destruction. And we don't want that. We want targeted destruction. So we don't have to worry about heat.
This is the story of a boy named Brian Jensen, who everyone calls BJ.
He loves sports. He loves to be outside.
A normal teen until
he just wasn't able to keep up with the other boys, and he started having some symptoms like really bad headaches and just kind of short of breath.
The news was not good.
He was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
For this young football player, it was game on.
BJ is a fighter through and through.
And so, number 74 attacked leukemia like the tight end he was. Facebook posts from BJ's mom, Michelle, have kept his friends up to date, from the good days of fishing trips to the tougher ones of chemo and blood tests and hours of waiting.
He's got faith that can move mountains.
That faith also moved friends, one of whom shared Michelle's Facebook post with me. In it, she said, BJ had his first shower in his own bathroom, the first one he'd had at home since he left for Duke right before Halloween. She went on to say that it was BJ's birthday on Friday and he was having a hard time. He sure would like to get a lot of cards. I connected with BJ's mom, who told me that he was a big fan of The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, that he hadn't seen the Star Wars film because he'd been in the hospital. So this mom decided to help that mom make it a birthday to remember.
And now we go to the biology laboratory and we take Dr. Baer's device, and the hunt begins through a microscope for a frequency which will shatter a living microorganism. Now we have a method of controlling Dr. Baer's device by an input control frequency. So if I put in, say, 100 hertz, out will come 100 pulses per second. If I put in 200 hertz, we'll get 200 pulses. So now we're searching for the magic frequency. And we start with 100 hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything's happening. We watch for 5 minutes. Nothing happens. So we try 101 hertz. We look through the scope for 5 minutes, and nothing happens. So we try 102, 103, and so on. Over the course of 15 months, we try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination. The answer is you have to have 2 input frequencies, one low, one high, and the higher frequency must be 11 times the lower. It's what we musicians would call the 11th harmonic. And when we add the 11th harmonic, we begin to shatter microorganisms like a crystal glass.
What would happen if I subjected these organisms to different electrical frequencies, he wondered. With this revolutionary thought, he began to gather all the necessary instruments, such as standard research microscopes, frequency generators to produce the high frequencies he would work with, test tubes and bacteriological equipment, cages for guinea pigs and other animals he would be working with, cameras for photographing specimens, and machine shop machinery to build his own designs. Rife met Lee DeForest, the father of modern vacuum tubes, who was an important contributor to early radio technology. He helped to build many of Rife's early frequency generators.
Way back in 1920, when, of course, radio was really in its infancy, I worked a number of years with Lee DeForest, which is a good man.
Rife found, through arduous experimentation, looking through the microscope as he applied various frequencies, that he was able to kill these microorganisms, proving his theory to be correct. In order to determine which frequencies would kill a particular organism, it was absolutely essential that he be able to see the organisms in a living state so that he could observe the effect of various frequencies in real time. Rife later called a frequency which killed an organism its MOR, or mortal oscillatory rate.
As an example, it's worked out, my theory was worked out on a basic principle of what we term coordinated resonance. Now we put a slide of a certain chemical or material under the petrographic micropolariscope, which is that second microscope down there. I didn't build that, I designed it. Now, we have what we call a coordinated resonance, you see. We have a chemical here, we have a frequency. All right. We will take and change those to two tuning forks that's pitched to the C absolute. We put the other one down there, we strike this one, the other one resonates. It's coordinated resonance, owing to the chemical constituents. And we create that electronically, the same as we determine what material is under that microscope by the color and the index of light as we rotate it between the analyzer and polarizer. As the color index fades from one color to the other, the angle of refraction of that crystal and so on, we can tell. It's coordinated resonance. The same as I say, you take two tuning forks that's pitched to the C or an A absolute, you strike one, the other one resonates.
I have here two identical tuning forks, both tuned to the note A, the note an orchestra tunes to. These forks are both made to vibrate 440 times per second. We say their frequency is 440 hertz. If I tap this fork, putting little pulses of energy into it, the second fork will also vibrate in sympathy. And if I silence this fork, we just may hear the other singing its tone.
So we're showing an electronic frequency through the tissues of the body that simply devitalizes the bacteria with no harm to normal tissue.
Rife also described how he found all the frequencies that would kill the various microorganisms.
I stood in front of that thing for 30 years, finding these different frequencies that devitalize these different bacteria, and that thing was shooting on me right here. But it is absolutely harmless to normal tissue, and each individual bacteria requiring a different frequency to devitalize. How do you arrive at the frequency of the bacteria? How do we arrive? We put the specimen of the bacteria under the microscope, and we tune this device, sometimes months before we find a frequency that will devitalize or precipitate or break up this. In other words, you have to keep trying frequencies until you,
These are the first videos taken. We showed these videos to our friends in the biology department. They said they hadn't seen anything quite like it. Seems to be a new phenomenon. These organisms are being shattered by our electronic signals. This is a harmless organism, almost friendly, a little blepharisma. And normally they're very fast swimmers, but when you approach a frequency to which they are vulnerable, they begin to slow down, then they stop, and then they begin to disintegrate within about 3 minutes. So now we know we can destroy a microorganism, and the question comes up, but can you target a specific organism with a specific frequency? So in this next video, you'll see a large organism in the center, a paramecium, undergoing disintegration, and swimming all around it, a tiny different organism, which is unharmed. If we're lucky, we'll also hear the audio as I narrate the experiment live in a noisy lab. Perhaps you can see this sort of fireworks effect happening in the growing blister to the right of the organism. And here comes a little neighbor wondering what's going on, who's testing. And you can see blisters forming now on the lower left quadrant and upper left quadrant. The shape is now changing. And a major explosion out the top. So now we have some evidence that we can target specific microorganisms with specific frequencies. And we make several more videos, and we film the destruction of hundreds of microorganisms. And about this time, we meet a cancer researcher, and we show them these videos. And this results in an invitation to spend 4 months in a cancer research lab trying to shatter cancer cells.
Sending you lots of love and hugs, Deborah Norville.
There were balloons and cards, lots of cards.
Wow, you have made such a tremendous amount of positive impact in people all over the world.
The Navy SEALs brought a cake. BJ was made an honorary member of SEAL Team 8 last fall.
Happy birthday to you.
From Duke University, where he'd been in clinical trials, a football signed by the entire team and a jersey from the head coach. Super Bowl swag and March Madness memorabilia came from CBS Sports. And a present from Coach K, whose Duke Blue Devils are NCAA champs. And a very special shout out.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, BJ Carell.
That's right. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson blew BJ and his family away with this message.
We have many more birthdays to go, buddy. Many more celebrations. Stay strong. Happy birthday.
It made my brother's day.
And since BJ can't really get to the movies, we brought the movies to him. Popcorn and a movie. Mission Impossible 5.
Awesome.
And there were plenty of friends to keep BJ company during the show. For a teen who's had so many days he'd probably like to forget, this was a day to remember. Ultimately, BJ's battle against cancer was Mission Impossible. On Sunday, the morning after BJ celebrated his birthday with friends, he left this earth surrounded by family.
I normally don't like to just make people mad, but I do want to motivate some anger, but from people behind this, because I think some anger is what's gonna kick this can down the road in one way more than another, and that is to anyone who has lost a person, a family member, a loved one from cancer, any disease, any fatal illness or fatal injury that you were told couldn't be cured, didn't have to happen. It just didn't have to happen. If they hadn't been suppressing this technology for decades, that wouldn't have to happen. Truth is, if you know or lost somebody in the last 20 or 30 years, it didn't have to happen, because we've had technology that was way more advanced than anything that the civilian population has been using for ages and ages. So I would really hope that people would get really irritated and ticked off, because that's the kind of thing that also gets people motivated to participate.
This is our setup in the lab. You can see the microscope with cancer cells on it. Here's the plasma tube, and here's my little frequency control box. So first we attack pancreatic cancer. Take a good look at this slide, because the next one will look quite different. After we treat these cells, they change their shape and size, and they begin to grow long, rope-like structures out the sides. They look something like antennas. I call them bioantennas, for biological antennas. It's as if the cancer cells are trying to tune into our signal. It also turns out this is the beginning of a process of destruction for cancer cells. We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. So now we attack leukemia cells. Leukemia cell number 1 tries to grow a copy of itself, but the new cell is shattered into dozens of fragments and scattered across the slide. Leukemia cell number 2 then hyperinflates and also dies. Leukemia cell number 3 then tries to make another cancer cell. The new cell is shattered and the original cell dies. But killing a handful of leukemia cells is not enough for a patient. What kind of numbers can we do? In repeated controlled laboratory experiments, independently assayed by the 2 top experts, we killed an average of 25% to 42% of the leukemia cells, as high as 60%. They also determined that we slowed the growth rate of the cancer by as much as 65%, so a double effect.
In the end, Rife's life work and equipment were seized, bribes were given, and Rife's company was bankrupted in the corrupt legal system. Royal Rife's work was forgotten, and doctors went back to prescribing pills and potions that don't work. Those days are now over.
All right, fast forward to the future. Imagine killing viruses like HIV, hepatitis, even the flu dead in their tracks by shaking them to death. Well, according to scientists, it may be possible. New research determining that motion at high frequencies could actually kill simple viruses.
This is a very interesting mathematical model right now that was created. It's not brand new, but it has been shown recently out of the Arizona State University scientists to work almost by shattering the shell around the virus, very similarly to opera singers and breaking a glass with high frequency sound. So these shells around the viruses are their protection, and if they can be blasted apart by high frequency laser waves, then of course we can kill the virus.
This equipment and this technology, would it in fact remove, for instance, a cancer tumor? Would it actually regenerate or cause diseases to abate? And for instance, would it actually bring you up to 20/20 vision with your eyesight? Those are kind of questions, that people would think about.
Absolutely. And so the fundamental basis of how this works is we get a perfect map of the person's body using their own DNA and map that DNA in a software model. The software model then tells the hardware what model we want to project. And so we essentially are using the subject's own DNA as the framework, as the modeling, and essentially the device which tells the cells to change, tells them to be in the framework of the perfect DNA structure. And so they just change on their own. So cancer cells would either self-destruct or would convert to a healthy state, or would convert down to some sort of unmetastasized healthy cell state. So a damaged cell would restore itself to a healthy state. An aged cell would restore itself to a younger, more vitalized state. So essentially the cellular tissue itself just is encouraged in a way through this technology that is beyond anything else to become its own perfect framework of itself again.
A dying 8-year-old will spend his final days as an honorary Marine. It's a rare move that the Commandant of the Marine Corps has to sign off on.
New at 5 o'clock, 10 News military reporter Hannah Mullins has how it's touching his dad's heart, who's stationed right here at MCRD.
Jeremiah Gillette is soaking in every second he can see his son smile and touch his skin. He tells me Wyatt can't talk, but he doesn't need to.
He knows when people are kind of feeling down, and he changes their attitude with a smile.
As a Marine Corps drill instructor, Jeremiah teaches people how to be tough, but here he's helpless. Wyatt's rare condition has triggered everything from seizures to complete kidney failure.
He's taught me to see the good in people.
He went online and asked fellow Marines for prayers. What he got was an overwhelming sense of support.
I just started crying. So many strangers and people took an interest.
A friend started a petition to make Wyatt an honorary Marine. The Commandant only approves a few a year for extraordinary contributions to the Marine Corps. Wyatt's fighting spirit is placing him among the few and the proud.
Honestly, he's the toughest kid I've ever met. He's the toughest person I've ever met.
But he may be in his final days of a losing battle.
It's going to be really difficult because no parent wants to say goodbye to their kid.
No parent should have to bury a child, but when he lays his boy to rest, he'll be proud to call him a fellow Marine.
Anyone who has lost a person, a family member, a loved one from cancer, any disease, any fatal illness or fatal injury that you were told couldn't be cured, didn't have to happen. It just didn't have to happen. If they hadn't been suppressing this technology for decades, that wouldn't have to happen. Truth is, if you know or lost somebody in the last 20 or 30 years, it didn't have to happen because we've had technology that was way more advanced than anything that the civilian population has been using for ages and ages. So I would really hope that people would get really irritated and ticked off, because that's the kind of thing that also gets people motivated to participate. I'm telling you, half the reason we still don't talk about this publicly, or why the politicians aren't talking about it on the Senate floor and on the floor of Congress every day, is because all of their constituents aren't demanding them to. I'm telling you, if everybody's constituents, if everybody's elected representative started demanding that we talk about this issue, it would start coming up and people would start talking about it, because even though they don't want us necessarily having all of our freedoms as much as we would like them to have. That's true. It's not true of every single person that participates in government or in state and in being a representative. And the main truth is that the more we participate, the more they will respond to us. So if everybody was demanding that we talk about this and get this technology, more people, more of our elected representatives would be talking about it, would be talking about, hey, we've got this technology, how do we get it out of the hands of these people and get it into the hands of the civilian population? We just aren't going to wait for that process. So we still believe in that process, and we still believe that people should get behind that process and tell their elected representatives that they need to do something about releasing these technologies to the civilian population. We're just not waiting for that to happen, so we're still doing everything in our power to make sure that those technologies get to the civilian population through another means. If that's what has to happen, we're definitely motivated on making that happen. We're not waiting for anybody, but we also don't think that just ignoring the fact that there's still a civil process is the answer either. We still have to involve our state politicians, we still have to involve our state representatives so that they're with us on this, because it's not just the government against us. There are some bad people in the apparatuses of government who are against us, but there are also a lot of people in the apparatuses of government who want to make it function and who want to help. And you just have to really start figuring out of your elected representatives which ones are the ones that want to help and which ones are the ones that don't, and start communicating with the ones that want to help.
No matter how impossible they may seem, every child has a dream for the future. When Lucy grows up, her dream is to be cancer-free. Some dreams seem impossible, but at KidScan we believe that fighting cancer isn't. This year in the UK, around 1,600 children will be diagnosed with cancer. 25% of those children won't make it to their 30th birthday. Through groundbreaking research, KidScan is striving to change that. We want to ensure that every child with cancer receives life-saving treatment designed especially for them. We believe children like Lucy should get the chance to grow up cancer-free and go on to live a life fulfilling all of their hopes and dreams. With your support, we can help every child with cancer to survive and thrive.
Since I was a 17-year-old high school student with twin interests in both music and science, I never imagined the two would come together in a cancer research lab. I now believe that the future cancer treatment rooms for children will be a very different place. It will be a pleasant place where children gather and make new friends. They probably won't even know they're sick. They'll draw pictures, color in their books, play with their toys, all the while unaware that above them are beautiful blue, pinkish plasma lights emanating healing, pulsing electric fields, shattering their cancer painlessly and non-toxically, one cell at a time. Thank you.
Well, in the summer of 2012, my research group identified a remarkable small compound. This is a compound that has the ability to unleash these genetic programs. This compound is called ZF143. Now, before we can test this in humans, we need to demonstrate its effectiveness in animal models. And I want to show you some of those data here today. So what happens when we injure the heart and we provide ZF143 to adult zebrafish? What we see is that heart repair and regeneration is absolutely amplified. That is to say, the creation of new heart tissue in the context of ZF143 is occurring 2 to 3-fold greater than the normal situation. But we can do something else. We can play genetic tricks in these animals, and we can create a situation so that when we injure the heart, their response is similar to what we see in humans. So no regeneration and massive scar formation. If, however, now we add ZF143 to this equation, what we see is that the defect in regeneration is corrected. It is as if the dormant regenerative genetic program has been reawakened by ZF143. And this is exactly what we would like to do in humans. Now, will it work in humans? Well, we don't know yet. But it's incredibly promising. Because remember, the genetic program that is required to heal an injured heart, it's not zebrafish specific, it's not mouse specific. It is not an alien genetic program, but it is one that resides in each one of our cells. With compounds like ZF143, we have the unique ability to unleash our body's own repair mechanisms. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where chronic diseases are straining the very fabric of our healthcare system, straining it to its breaking point. It's a world where cynicism is rampant regarding the ability of science to be a part of the solution. But I believe the future is bright. I believe that advances in technological innovation have the ability to change lives. I want you to imagine a world. Imagine a world where Alzheimer's and diabetes is as commonplace as polio is in our world. I want you to imagine a world where a child born today, by the time that he or she goes off to college, the very notion of heart disease is as remote as the probability of you and I contracting smallpox. I believe that advances in regenerative medicine and discoveries like ZF143 truly has the ability to shine a bright light on a seemingly dark future. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the future is incredibly bright, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Something that sings in my blood is telling me, yes, I can. I was just born today, I can go all the way, yes, I can.
Until the people who actually have the real funds to throw down for this get serious with me, people who seriously want to invest in this project, who want to talk about return on investment, who want to talk about access to the technology, we're perfectly willing to talk about that. And my engineers have to be paid. Like, they have to have their salaries paid. I have to have an account that pays my engineers for 10 years before I will start, because I will not get 5 years into a project and tell my engineers, oh, sorry, we ran out of money this year, and now I got to go fundraise again. That's not happening. That's not happening. People who understand how these projects works know that you can't do that. Know that you can't get a project halfway started, halfway funded, and then have it die because you didn't get the funding you needed to keep your people working when you needed to have it working. So I've made it very clear there's a threshold, there's a ground floor for what this takes to get off the ground. We have a plan and agenda for how that's going to happen without me asking or getting $1 from another human being. That's going to take a while. And so, and I have no problem with that, right? I will do it that way. I, of course, would love to bring it to the world faster, but I can't do it unless people want to become really participatory in that process.
Right.
Anyone who's serious about making this happen needs to understand that my people have to have job security. We have to have secure laboratory space. We have to have security personnel, because I'm not taking any risks for whether someone's going to mess with my project or interfere or try and, kick the door in. I'm going to make sure that we are prepared, as I've discussed with the command staff and my brigadier general, how to make sure none of that goes awry by ensuring that all of our contingency plans are accounted for.
I'm going to go back to screen sharing this GoFundMe site, and I just want to, can you give our viewers any more information about this so they know? I'm going to put the link to this in the description section of the video, so our viewers can go click on that link and you go right to this page. Yeah, that'd be great. Get that information that you need. Now, Randy, is there also information on how to contact you on this page? Or if not, how can they contact you if they have if there's a big donor out there who really has the heart of gold and wants to help humanity and really wants to put some funds behind this, how are they going to reach you?
Then they should email me, which is the same email on my website, which you have my email. That's the CaptainK444@gmail. You can put that up and people can, that's really the best way for people who are serious to reach me.
Now, this is going to help, is this these initial phases? Is this what is this particular project right here that we're looking at? What is this helping, going towards?
This is just what I would consider our bottom gutter level funds to get more funds and get us off the ground. So that doesn't pay for, anybody's salaries. That just gets us enough that I can pay at least my chief engineer and my software engineer for their time, so that when we can dedicate some more time to, I can at least give them some contracting projects to start with that I can pay them for, because they don't work for free. They have families to take care of and roofs to keep over their families' heads too. Right. And most of them have kids, have families, so they can't do this work for free. So when I can pay them to do the work that they need to do, that we can move this forward, that we can get our presentation video taken care of, and that we can have I understand that some investors want to see a better presentation of what we're doing. We're happy to work on that and make that happen. We're happy to discuss that. I have said to several people, you want me to get my chief engineer on the phone? You want me to get him in the room? We'll sit down and talk about it right now.
We need to have serious investors and people who want to bring this quality of life to humanity so we can move forward and humanity can move forward. Because sick people can't work. And no work means no economy, means, this is the idea. I mean, if you want a good economy, we need our people to be well, and we need to put them back into the workforce and move the economy. Would you agree, Randy?
I would 100% agree. In fact, one of our major points is understanding as a civilization what lost work time costs us. When we look at what lost sick time, injury time, all of the sort of medical leave time that costs us as a society and a civilization is huge.
I'm sure
when
it
you
is.
Think of all the people who have fallen down, to the point in society where they can't afford, their medical care, and they get hurt really badly, and tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, are shouldered by the general public, which it should be, in the sense that those, we have to, as a society, shoulder that burden, but we can reduce that burden by reducing the medical impact on people, by reducing their injuries and reducing their handicaps. I mean, it might rub some people the right and wrong way when I say this, but I dream of a world in where we don't have to have handicap signs anymore, because we just don't have handicapped people anymore, because we've healed them all and restored their arms, legs, eyes, ears, and everything else that doesn't work, because we can't. So that would change the economy of a percentage of people who, because of real genuine need, have to require more from the social contract. And, let's get everybody healed so everybody can contribute to the social contract.
Absolutely.
And I think that, again, this is something that appeals to people who understand that the economy has to move, and that we're trying to help the economy move with things like this. We're not trying to destroy the economy with this kind of technology or these kinds of changes. We're trying to fix it, trying to make it healthier, trying to make it more vibrant, trying to make it competitive at a higher level, trying to build jobs, put people to work, and create more American manufacturing. So the technology itself would have to be manufactured within the U.S. and would have to be manufactured by American workers.
Jobs. Trump would like what you're saying. He's trying to get those jobs, generate those jobs for the American economy. Absolutely.
No, I love talking about Donald Trump. He's one of my favorite people right now, because he is demonstrating a lot of what our theories, about social psychology and social demographics and electoral demographics are. He's proving them through his actions, which are that people are sick and tired of being lied to. And they're sick and tired of dishonest representation. They're tired of people standing up in front of them and reading a very sterile sort of speech and bullet points and not being honest with them. They're sick and tired of it. They can sense it and they hate it.
And I saw one channel made like $40 million off you being on there. They should give all of it to the vets.
Well, they should give a lot more than 5, I'll tell you right now. But we can make America greater than ever before. But we have to get going. It has to happen. We have to get going.
Donald Trump is very real. He's very real from the guts. He speaks very honestly, and people get a sense of that. So his appeal is honesty.
I just want to finish by saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot, but you'll be looking at me in a year or 2 years. Let's give me a little bit of a time to run things. But a year into office, you'll be saying, wow, I remember that interview. He said he was going to do it, and he did a great job. You'll be very proud of our country.
Well, I'm impressed. I mean, you're saying you're fully committed. There's no future if we don't take this country back. Donald Trump, I hope you can help uncripple America. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
And you're absolutely right, Randy. This is about, it's about being more productive and having a better quality of life, having people be productive in participate in the economy, and being well. And absolutely. Great questions, though. I mean, because we're really trying to really think about, the more we talk about it, the more, we can start conceptualizing it in our own life. And that's why when we start demanding it, like you said, Randy, this has to be consumer driven. It has to be demanded. I always kind of said capitalism with a conscience, there has to be a point in time when you have to, you have to say, certainly everybody, as Winston's pointed out, should be compensated for their time. But we have to have a better quality of life. There's no question. And this is a quality of life issue. And people do need to start demanding this. If we really start to understand this is within our reach. It's not science fiction. This is within our reach.
Right.
We can do this.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I have said more than once, it's probably a 10-year process from where we are right now to a functional model that could work on a human being or be approved to work on a human being. So we have to go through certain hoops like everybody else, but it's going to happen. People really want to make it happen. Enough people really want to help make it happen. The financial assistance is moving down the pipe. That's not even a question. And so whether all of the pieces will be there or not to make it happen, again, is not a question. It's just a matter of when all that sorts out, not whether or not it will. So it'll happen. We'll make it happen. Very driven to make it happen, so it will happen if I have anything to say about it in this lifetime.
Hey, yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can! Are you ready? I can climb Everest. Yes, I can. I can fight here all night and never rest. Yes, I can. I was just born today. I can go all the way. Yes! I can.
Great people of tomorrow. Every perfume starts with one ingredient. But it's the last one that makes it come to life. You have witnessed the birth of a new elixir and have been part of a great adventure. You came here to find eternal bliss. But Mother Nature has given us much more.